the press and the country at large on issues of national concern in Ethiopia.
Good afternoon, all of you. And I guess that now all of you know me and the way we conduct affairs here. Our press conferences are normally 12 o'clock. So as the minister, let me apologize to you for this late start. All of the individuals who want to use or who are required to use this platform have to be respectful of time, because that shows respect for you also. You have different activities that you're supposed to be involved with. You take all your time. You come, you sit here, when we tell you the press conference is 12 o'clock, which is at 12 o'clock. Those responsible for organizing the press conference has indicated that we're supposed to have a guest today, in addition to what we have to say. And we are where we are, and the guests have not arrived, so I thought it's fair to you to just have the press conference instead of keeping you waiting. So we'll talk about a few things. One of the biggest things happening in the country and in governance circle today is the official launch of the Global Fund Grants Cycle number 7 for the people of Liberia in the fight against HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Many of you journalists are fully aware of what a global fund is. It is that global intervention that ensures that people who are troubled by HIV, by tuberculosis, and by malaria have the support that is required in combating the 3 diseases. So since the intervention of the Global Fund Program for Liberia, nearly 500 million has been spent on combating the 3 diseases in Liberia. Today's launch of Cycle 7, which will last for 3 years, brings a grant. And that's the most important part. The Global Fund intervention in Liberia is not loan, meaning the government does not have to pay all of their interventions as grant. Meaning you spend the money on your country for free and you don't have to pay back. So by the launch of Cycle 7 today, which is in the tune of 93 million, Liberia in the next 3 years has support to fight TB, to fight malaria, and to fight tuberculosis. In addition, there is $34 million in addition to the 93 million, which will be used for the strengthening of the healthcare system. Meaning what was launched today will see the investment of 127 million in the next 3 years in fighting malaria, HIV, and tuberculosis. That launching ceremony took place and perhaps may still be ongoing at the Monrovia City Hall, where President Waka formally launched the intervention. We have had long conversations about the much talk about earth-moving equipment for Liberia. But the first time I had to make an intervention with regards to those machines, that was immediately after the cabinet retreat, where a presentation was made about the acquisition of the machines. At that time, those of you who may remember very well, I announced that there was no formal agreement, and I'm sure many of you here remember that, and that conversations were ongoing. You witnessed recently that the process of having those machines in country started. The first batch came, followed by a second, anticipation of spare parts is on the work. And you've noticed that we haven't talked much about it, because, see, governance is not just about talking, everybody responding. Everything we do with regards to governance should be for the benefit of the people. Whether it's intervention in moving equipment that became the talk of the time, whether it's wanting to pave our roads, or putting medication equipment in hospitals, funding schools so that they have benches and all of the instructional materials they need. The focus has to be about the progress of the country. So for us, the bigger picture has been, what's the implication of having 285 pieces of moving equipment in the country? That leads to the establishment of maintenance zones across our country, where there are continuous intervention on the road. That's key. Yes, others also got interest in ensuring that the laws are followed. They too have a right. But one thing we're sure of is that as a government, all of the actors would have done the required collaboration and intervention to ensure that something that benefits the country, that benefits the people, is not hindered. And I'm sure it's in that regard that the President has formally written the leadership of the legislature, the Speaker, President of the Senate, who's the Vice President, and I guess the Pro Tem. They all have a communication from the President addressing their concerns about the acquisition of the yellow machine. Also, one of the things we're waiting for is the fact that members of the legislature, I think particularly the House of Representatives, requested some officials of the government from the executive to have gone there today, and my information is that they are there. What this shows is that the leaders of the country are talking, but importantly, the equipments are arriving. And I'm not sure that any of us who are leaders, irrespective of what part of the governance system we are, would not want to see interventions that keep the country making progress. Our information is that of recent, 500 pieces of similar equipment were sent to Burkina Faso that is making huge strides. I've seen some of the people in our country who criticizing the importation of the yellow machine, referring to the Burkinabe leader as a revolutionary who is transformative. Back to their own country, the thought is different. So yes, as was announced, the equipment are arriving, but I thought to also inform you that the leaders are talking. And in the end, whatever their talk will lead to will be in the interest of our country. I was particularly drawn to a group of independent journalists who took upon themselves, with all that we've been talking about roads, to say, okay, we'll make a special visit to the southeast of our country. And between Monrovia and Ganta, yes, the Global Card. And between that place, what is going to happen, I listened to their story when they were informing the public that they took motorcycles. While on their way, all the vehicles they saw going in that direction were all low vehicles. And they gave their own assessment as to what the road situation is. The Liberia being what it is, and with some believing that once it's not them, then nothing should happen, they started to attack those journalists. And they were pay agents, but the roads are there. They went there. If you believe that what they report there is not true, go do yours. Get on motorbike and go there too. Find the pictorials and the videos as they did. And say the same place they say they came from, here is where we're coming from. Here is the condition of the place contrary to what they said. But the fact that people don't even have appetite for good news. The fact that there are some people who all they want to hear is bad news says to us the country is still in a very difficult spot. But if you are one of those disciples of bad news, then you ought to be right. Because the worker administration that we are a part of will deliver on the commitments that were made. And I've always said, don't be in a hurry to make judgment. Today when we talk about the past regime, we can talk about it the way we talk because it has 6 years. And the 6 years expired. So you can assess them on account of what happened in 6 years. To have a government that's still got 5.5 years, and you think you want to use just the normal style of politics to give an impression that there's failure, then something is wrong. Just a few months back, civil servants, most times they will be old, 1 to 5 to 6 months. And when they get ready to pay, there's a special press conference, special press release, to pay somebody for the money they work for. You don't see that anymore. Right now, salaries are being processed for civil servants for July. The Foreign Ministry has indicated that by July 19 is their schedule. All the civil servants would have been paid. That's good news compared to where we were last few months. Yeah, there are some people who vex about that. They want a continuation of the situation where people should not be able to take pay. They want a situation where you should not even have electricity. They want a situation where no road should be built. The hospitals should be empty. Schools should have no benches. It brings them satisfaction. But they're not going to get that. Because we have an administration that will deliver. We have a president who is concerned about building condominiums for himself in 6 months, but wanting 285 pieces of FOB equipment that will benefit the people. When you build condominiums, it's for you. When you put books in library, when you equip laboratories, when you pave roads, the roads that you can't pave when you make them possible. Hospitals have all that they need to run. That's progress for the people. Now public officials build mansions for themselves. And I thought we should be glad that we have an administration that for the very genesis is showing strength in its desire to perform and deliver to the people. So yes, finally the president has communicated to the other leaders, especially those in the other branch of government, on what exactly has unfolded with the question of the yellow machines, and conversations will be ongoing. What the law requires to be done. The government is pleased that you want something to be done and somebody gets out the interest before we even finalize or talk anything. So you know that this is serious. We can start deploying this in your country. And I'm sure all the leaders will see it from that positive standpoint. And in the end, they will act collectively as a government to uphold something that benefits the country and its people. And we want to say that the president has acted very appropriately, like doing those communications that were spoken about a few minutes ago by me. And we all look forward to seeing how our leaders find harmony in delivering to the people. I know there have been a lot of speculations about what is happening at the Ministry of Finance. And I want to confirm to you that yes, the Minister of Finance tendered his resignation. That resignation has been accepted than the president. The president and the entire government are grateful to Mr. Kamara for his role played. Minister Kamara is still very useful to the country, whether on the local or international front, and he will continue to be an asset to the country and will play some role in some other roles in the future. Because we want to ensure that government's operation continues and that the Ministry of Finance itself remains operational and very effective, the President has asked Mr. Anthony C. Myers to act as Minister of Finance until further notice, or in other words, until a final determination is made on who the next Minister of Finance of the country will be. So I know a lot of you press people, you've been calling in. You wanted to hear from us if what you were hearing in the public sense there was nothing official was true. You don't have answer to that inquiry. I know that so many things happen in our country, and sometimes people forget that Liberia is a sovereign nation. We've seen media publications suggesting concerns from some international organization on quote-unquote an imaginary tension between the current president, former president, or concerned about presidential non-usage and all of that. Let me remind all of those who doing those kinds of publications why it is true that Liberia as a nation belongs to many different regional and international organizations. Those involvement would not compromise our status as a sovereign nation. And it's unimaginable that people will be just thinking and believing that some international entity or organization can just interfere with your domestic governance process and tell you what to do. That doesn't happen. That is not happening here. There is no so-called tension between the current president and ex-president. And suggesting some international body having a kind of interest in what we do domestically in our governance process is just not true. We are a sovereign nation. We have an elected government. They've got a responsibility. They will perform those responsibilities without instruction or interference from anybody else. Because we too do not do so for any institution or any country. Each of us, irrespective of our togetherness in different organizations, whether it's global, regional, or sub-regional, we respect the sovereign nature of each of the member states, and none will do anything to interfere with what is required domestically from those nations as far as the governance process is concerned. So for those who are running around with those kinds of information, you're not doing yourself good. Let's focus on positive things and not those things that don't benefit our people anything. Whoever serves as ECOWAS ambassador anywhere in the sub-region or UN ambassador anywhere doesn't change anything about how food is put on the table of our people. Our hospitals are operational here, and the schools are equipped and they can be run. Our roads are accessible to all parts of the country. Everything that are directly border on the interests of our people, these things don't show or play any part on that. So let's focus on what is good for the country. Let's focus on what we want to see ourselves doing as a nation, rather than dwelling on all of the unnecessary petty things that sometimes will take our attention away. One of the pillars of the president's agenda, the arrest agenda, is agriculture. And that's an area of expertise for the president himself. And so, great concern and interest is placed on this sector. The team at the Ministry of Agriculture has been taking the bull by the horn. And as you may all be aware, they recently launched the National Agricultural Development Plan, which in their opinion will boost food security and enhance economic growth in Liberia. But that plan is estimated to cost about $718 million and implementable in the next 6 years by the Ministry of Agriculture and other stakeholders in the agricultural sector. The goal is to ensure that Liberia is able to feed herself. And this is something that all of us should embrace. Nations that struggle to feed themselves are left at the mercy of others. We are blessed, even now as we speak, there are many nations that are experiencing drought. But I guess all of you are tired of the rain. I was coming in the hall and a bulk of you were out there. And somebody said to me, you were running away from the cold. In other countries, that's not the situation. We got maximum rainfall, we got good soil, we got everything that we need to enhance agricultural productivity. And that's one of the things you gotta be thinking about as we're talking about the FMOB equipment. Because part of the goal is not just to use all of them for roads. A good portion of them will be used to enhance agricultural productivity, help farmers to clear their farmland for production. You can imagine what a revolution it will be that you have all those earth-moving equipment that are not just making our roads, including farm-to-market roads, possible, but it will also be ensuring that our people can produce and produce enough, because feeding ourselves is a must. And the worker administration is very focused on that, committed to that, and we are all impressed that the Ministry of Agriculture is playing that role that they are supposed to ensure that all of us get there. Having said that, I was in speech when the guests that are supposed to be here arrived, so I will end my interventions from here and call the So Mr. Sando will now take charge and invite the guests who have also got something to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Jeremy Matthew Pia, Minister of Information, Republic of Liberia, the official spokesperson of the government, for laying out the issues and making very clear the government positions on the issue he spoke about. We have with us here today a visiting delegation. They're here to work in partnership with the Liberia Electricity Corporation. As you know, energy is a very cardinal component of the government's arrest agenda. And so the NEC is working seriously well to expand the energy sector. So Dr. Lawrence Jones will make remarks on behalf of the delegation, who will be joined later on by Mr. Moni Arakatan. Mr. Jones, after mounting the podium, will make the appropriate recognition of members of the delegation. And I have the privilege to welcome to the national podium Dr. Lawrence Jones for his remarks.
Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here. First of all, Mr. Minister, thanks for having us. Let me first apologize for our late arrival, as obviously with things happening in life, sometimes the unexpected occurs, and so we apologize for our late arrival. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Lawrence Jones. As said, I'm the Senior Vice President of the Edison Electric Institute. The Edison Electric Institute is an organization based in the United States. We represent all the investor-owned utilities in the United States. We also have about 70 international members. These are electric utilities all over the world that operate in over 90 countries. And one of those countries that they operate in is in Liberia. The Liberia Electricity Corporation is a member of the Edison Electric Institute. As an institute, our mission is to work around the world to bring and help foster the provision of electricity to people around the world. If you combine our U.S. members and our international members, which includes the Liberia Electricity Corporation, our members provide electricity to about 4 billion people. And so our focus as an organization is to make sure that utilities around the world are operating in an environment that provides the right regulatory as well as policy and investment environment to build the electricity sectors around the world. Our partnership with the Liberia Electricity Corporation began about 2 years ago, and the focus of that partnership is to work with the LEC as well as other stakeholders in Liberia to foster the closing of any gaps we see between how you operate the utility, how you make sure you have the right access to the resources in terms of generation, the infrastructure, transmission, as well as distribution. So I think this is important. This is an important time for Liberia in terms of the electricity system. And Mr. Minister, if you permit me, we just add a little personal note. As some of you may know, I was born in Liberia. I went to Rick's Institute as well as the B.W. Harris School, studied at the University of Liberia and at the Company University College before I spent about 25 years working in the electricity sector worldwide. So for me, as a native of Liberia, electricity has been something I've been around for most of my life because my father used to work at the Liberia Electricity Corporation in the 70s and 80s. By the time it was actually called the Public Utility Authority, as you well know, Mr. Minister. So electricity is very important, and I think the goal here for us is to really bring and share the best practices from around the world with our colleagues at the LEC. We've been here now for about a week and almost 2 weeks actually. We've had meetings not just with the LEC, but we've had meetings with other stakeholders, including representatives from the Liberian Electricity Regulatory Commission, folks from the Ministry of Land, Mines and Energy. We've met with schools. We actually had a session with students from the 7 schools in Monrovia, including outside of Monrovia as well, BWI, Don Bosco, and some of the other technical vocational schools in the country. And what was important, and we've said this previously, is that particular session with the students was perhaps one of the most inspiring for us, and my colleagues will introduce them soon, and each of them will say a few words. But the meeting with the students was very important because what we believe as an industry worldwide is that human energy is the foundation for building an electricity sector. And what we learned talking to those young students, their bright minds, very curious. There was a young lady from Don Bosco that I spoke to who had so much passion for electricity. So with the human energy, the potential that is there, we believe that the foundation for building a strong electricity sector in Liberia is there. Prior to coming, one of the discussions we have looked at is to look at the progress, Mr. Minister, that Liberia has made. As you all know, the LEC today is run by almost only Liberians. Compared to 10 years ago, the LEC had been run by different foreign operators who did their best as they could. But today, based on what we have seen and based on the observation, Liberians should be proud of the progress that has been made. Today, there is something called non-technical losses, which for all intents and purposes means how do you reduce power theft in the country? And the non-technical losses of the LEC today has reduced by almost 20%. which is a big number compared to the rest of the world. And so when we look at the progress that has been made here, Mr. Minister, by the government, by the LEC, and by others, the donors and others, there's much to be proud of. But there's still much to do, because to be very honest, as we see the country, we know that power theft is still a big issue. We know that the infrastructure still needs to be built. And so we've had discussions this week with representatives from the LEC, technical discussions, policy discussions. We've also had meetings with the board to exchange ideas. And so we hope that the dialogue and the relationship with the Liberian Electricity Corporation through the Edison Electric Institute, and of course with the government and others, is to build the human capacity, to build the human energy and leverage that. And on the issue of power theft, one thing I said on the radio station, I was fortunate to visit Prime Radio yesterday and also OK Radio. And one of the key messages we tried to convey, that power theft is bad. When you steal power, you actually affect the entire country. So we as a people, as a community, as a consumer of electricity, needs to support the government, support the LEC, because every kilowatt hour that is stolen from the LEC actually affects the government's long-term vision for building the country. It also affects the LEC's ability to do its job. So we as a community, we're also fortunate to visit the LEC Anti-Theft Task Force that is run by Mrs. Mary Bro. And one of the things that I said when I was there was that every time someone steals power, that person is making it difficult for a mother to get the treatment at the JFK. It's making it difficult for a student to get education, because that means there's less power to give them. So with that, I'm going to now introduce my two colleagues, and they will each come and say a few words and be happy to take questions. So first, let me introduce both of them and they will come up. First is Mr. David Owens. He's the president and founder of a company called Division. And David was also the one who was asked by the U.S. government after the hurricane in Puerto Rico to rebuild the system in Puerto Rico. So we'll invite David, and after David, my next colleague joining us from Switzerland is Mr. Marco Montefiore. We invited Marco to be part of this delegation, not because only of the book he's written on energy citizenship, which he will talk about, but because, as we know, Mr. Minister, one of the big things we need in Liberia, in the electricity sector and many other sectors, is investment. Mr. Montefiore is an investor who works with companies around the world. So after David gives his brief remarks and his experience in Puerto Rico, we'll invite Marco to say a few words, and then we'll be happy to take questions from the media. So David, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for this opportunity. So I want to just share an experience, but I want to put it in the context of Liberia. Lawrence mentioned right after the major hurricanes in Puerto Rico had this massive hurricane called Hurricane Maria in 2017. And following that hurricane, I was asked to come to Puerto Rico to help to restore electricity and to help the implementation of a vision that they had about making the electric system in Puerto Rico more reliable and more resilient. When I arrived in Puerto Rico, it was incredible. 95% of the roads were impassable. Over 4,000 people lost their lives. The total island was black. Wastewater treatment, non-existent. Clean drinking water, non-existent. So, what I learned from that experience, 4 years of going back and forth to Puerto Rico, was the importance of building blocks if you're seeking to try to enhance your electric system. Many years ago, I was looking at Liberia over 25 years ago and said, you know, if we could electrify Liberia, it would uplift the spirit and would uplift the economy of Liberia. But when I went to Puerto Rico and I relate to my experiences there and try to inform you of some of the elements that are important if we're trying to improve the electricity system in Liberia, Here's some of the things that I found out. First, you need a plan. You need a vision. You need to know where you want to go. Obviously, that's an important role of your legislature. Where do I want to go? What's my vision about the electricity system in Puerto Rico? How can I make it so all residents of Liberia have electricity? Lawrence mentioned power theft. Let me just push that aside. You need infrastructure. There are several elements of infrastructure. One element is the power supply facilities. You have hydro facilities here. You use some oil, but you need to have power supply. You need to have plants that produce electricity. You can have the plants that produce electricity, but you also need the wires to carry that electricity. That's called an energy delivery system. So in the brief time that I've been here in Liberia, I see you do not have a strong energy delivery system. You do not have adequate supplies to provide electricity, but you have a vision. But that vision is not understood by everyone. And is that vision implementable? The vision for the electricity system in Liberia has got to be implementable. It's got to be something that all of you are aware of. It's got to be something that you all feel very passionately about can be achieved. We need to be able to strengthen the grid. We need to be able to build more power facilities. We need to be able to connect communities that are not connected today. That requires investment. Now we get money from the government, but we need to find a way, and that money is not enough. We need to find a way where we can create an investment opportunity for those who want to come and help Liberia out. And they're going to only help Liberia out if they believe in a plan that you have. If they believe and share your vision. So that's why I'm excited to be here. And I hope that we are asked some questions about how we can go forward. My experience in Puerto Rico, I think, is pretty helpful, because I saw a system that was totally destroyed that is being rebuilt. I saw a system that was totally destroyed where the legislature had a strong vision about where they wanted to take that utility. I saw a system that was totally destroyed that created a partnership with the customers. I saw a system that was totally destroyed where the universities are helping to implement that vision. I saw a system that was totally destroyed where private capital is beginning to come into Puerto Rico. So I hope we have the opportunity to talk about some of that. And thank you again for this chance to speak with you today.
Thank you, Minister, for the opportunity. It's great to be here. I'm a Swiss-born Italian. I had to travel around the world to understand the complexities of the energy systems. My background is in oil and gas, but I've also invested in the energy transition. The big word today is energy transition, and investments are a key enabler of it. So when you come to a place like Liberia, you see a lot of opportunities, and you also hear that money is an issue. Well, let me tell you that in the investment world, money is typically never an issue. There's money sitting, waiting for opportunities. So opportunities is what money are looking for. Then the question is, how can Liberia become an opportunity for foreign investors? And that's where I think David and Lawrence have sort of given already a hint on the direction we need to go. The starting point is the vision. The vision that the country wants to have for the next, not year, 2 years, or decade, but for the next 100 years. And from that vision, you walk backward and you figure how you're going to execute it. There has to be a vision and a commitment and a responsibility to execute it. And by doing that, investors would know where to go, where there is an issue, when there is a glitch, to understand how that is going to be sorted. Because what investors want eventually is a return. They want their money back. They need to know who to talk to, who to call when there is an issue. And there's always issues, not just in Liberia, everywhere. There's issues in startups in Silicon Valley, there's issues in startups in Tel Aviv, in Berlin, in Spain, in India, in Singapore. The investors want to know who is responsible and they want to be reassured. So investing is also about storytelling. Entrepreneurs need to know what they want to achieve. They need to know that they never need to overpromise. In fact, they should always underpromise and overdeliver. So there is an element of being able to become an entrepreneur and raise the standards to international levels, but it is absolutely possible. It's happened in pretty much every country. It's happening in other countries in Africa. I recently met an entrepreneur from Angola who has got his own startup on robotics. So you can attract funds internationally as long as you are committed to deliver a vision. And this vision doesn't have to be what your neighbors have done. It has to be something that reflects your own identity and your own drives. I understand that there is a huge challenge coming from your recent past. Unfortunately, wars are never fully understood, especially by people who haven't suffered them, how they destroy your willingness to do things, how it unsettles the daily life. But, human beings have been around the planet for tens of thousands of years. They've always gone through war, they've always recovered. So there's a way out, no matter how dark and grim the situation can look. And in this respect, I would like to shift to my second topic and wrap up. I wrote a book about energy citizenship for one simple reason. I called it energy citizenship because originally actually it was a diary for my children. And I dedicated the book to my children, but also to 8 billion people worldwide. Why 8 billion people? Because the book explains that energy, and not just electricity, is the foundation of society, right? Society, economic growth, civilization. 1.5 million years ago, when the early human beings learned how to communicate, that's around the time when early human beings learned how to master fire. And so on and so forth, you can draw a line, a parallel between human civilization and the use and the mastery of energy. So learning how to understand and appreciate the value that energy has for society on a daily basis is essential for all the citizenship, all the way up to decision makers and policy makers. Because by appreciating the role that energy plays in restarting a country or in fostering growth, that's where you basically turn things around and you restabilize and you regain your trajectory and you basically build a long-term sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, like I said in my initial remarks, in the next 6 years, this country will see a lot of progress. And of course, one of the places we must pay very keen attention to is the energy sector. And it is pleasing to us, the actors from the international system are also focused on what is happening here, particularly in this case with regards to the energy sector. We're glad that an international person who is of Liberian origin is here with a team to see exactly what is happening in our energy sector and how they can be helpful. I think about a week ago, we signed a grant of over 40 million to connect additional 500,000 households. You can do all the interventions with energy, electricity, until it benefits the ordinary people and serves as a source of empowerment for them. We still got a long way to go. I traveled over the weekend to Basel, and I see this rapid expansion of the erection of poles and connecting of the transmission lines all over the place. Because don't forget the power stations that were built under the West African Power Pool, the CLSG, landed in a number of places, including somewhere on the Ravensby Highway, in the Canal, in Kakata, and somewhere along the Bombay route. And the intent of those power stations is to provide electricity, but until you have the infrastructure for distribution and transmission, you don't get the energy into the homes of people. And we see that progressing very well, and we're pleased to have seen the EU provide a grant that will ensure in a period of time additional 500,000 homes and not just some other places being connected. So we're glad that we have you and your team here. I hope Mr. Captain was here to also lay more emphasis on how this can enhance what they do at the LEC. But it's a good thing. Get ready for that. In the next 6 years, expansionary work everywhere. So whether it's in road construction, whether it's in the expansion and distribution of energy, whether it's in food security and agricultural advancement, whether it's ensuring that our academic institutions are up to the standards that are required, whether it is to ensure that our health sector is strengthened and is delivering to the people, all that is required will have the attention of this government. I am very keen on the energy sector, sir, because this ministry is called the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism. So we have some responsibility over the hospitality industry. They are challenged. The tourists can leave from here, maybe you go to Gambia, maybe a family of 5. You spend just a little to stay there, do what you want to do. If the same number of persons come here, the cost will also will triple, because hotels here are expensive, because we don't generate enough electricity. Many of them operate on their generators, that additional cost, and all of that impact the price. So we got challenges with our hospitality sector. So expanding energy to enable them to do what they have to do, which will eventually lower the cost of the services they provide, is something that is of interest to us. So we thank you and your team for coming. We have a very robust and active media here. They like to engage guests, and I'm very sure they will not be disappointed because I already see the ground being formed. So we'll now relax and take their questions.
Thank you, Minister. You will have the full name to thank the general one for you, please. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Morris Walenti, and
So you will have to take note of 3 questions at a time so you can address it. Thank you.
so my name is Morris Walenti, and I report for OKFM. You know, I was feeling somehow on the minister talking about some connections in Basel. I'm sorry that Stanley County is not part of it anyway. But on a serious note, sorry that, sirs, I'm not familiar with your name, sorry, but I got a few concerns. You know, in Liberia, one of the things that Liberians are faced with, particularly from the LEC angle, is that when people pay for their meters, you know, they don't get it on time. Sometimes that can prompt, you know, power theft. So I want to ask, do you care to maybe propose some ways, you know, that we can mitigate the issue of power theft in Liberia? And another thing is, you think we have the capacity, maybe I'm sure maybe you did some assessment across the country, you've been seeing some waterfalls and all of that. Do you think we need another hydro in the country in order to supply other countries? And to Minister Pierre, thank you so much. You talked about Minister Boyman Camara resignation. Do you care to tell us whether the minister cite any reason behind his resignation? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is George Momo, and I report for KSTV Liberia. So my question goes to Dr. Jones. Thank you for the partnership to our energy sector. There is this concern about the low water level at MICAT during the dry season. So as an expert, I want to know what's your expert opinion, or how do you think we can handle that? And you spoke of the MICAT plan. I don't know whether you saw the CLSG line that travels from Taboo through the Prodo border to Harper, Maryland, and of course River G. At that point, we have nothing like breaker, that just in case there is a problem, we will have our energy people going there to settle things. But instead, there will be call place to Ivory Coast. So, as an expert, how do you think we can handle that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Ibrahim Sharif, and I report for the Liberia News Agency. I am more concerned about the National Agricultural Development Plan that was launched yesterday, because over the years, to the minister disappeared. Because over the years, we have seen so many money being pumped into the agricultural sector in this country, but we still have little to show. So I want to know, what are the plans by your government? How do you intend to achieve the National Agricultural Development Plan that was launched yesterday?
So we have three over the minister.
Thank you so much. So my name is James Mbala. So out of the guests who answer the questions or the concerns from me, my concern has been drawn to the speaking point that has to do with power taps and government officials refusing to know that they're supposed to pay for power instead of only the citizens. What are some of the mechanisms you use in other countries to avoid power taps and making government officials to know that they themselves should for power and not only the citizens?
Thank you. You will address your concern.
Thank you, those are great questions. Let me start first, and David, I'll call you to sit next to me so we can both stand here and I will address it. Let me first address the question regarding the low water levels at Mount Coffee. That is not a new problem in Liberia. In fact, that is not a new problem in many parts of the world. Because we have climate change, like the minister said, that's happening around the world. The hotter it gets, we'll have more evaporation and less water in the hydro during the year, especially during the dry season, not during the whole year, but during the dry season. Right now, because of the rainy season in Liberia, we have excess hydro, we have more water, but when the dry season comes. So what some countries do is you either have what is called a diverse set of resources. So besides the hydro, what you will also have, you could have a solar, a utility scale solar. And as I've been informed, the LEC is currently finalizing the process to build a 20 megawatt solar plant next to Mount Coffee. What that will do is that during the dry season, when you have more heat, when you have more sun, you have more solar power, so that will balance out the fluctuation that's happening at the hydro. But there's another resource that Liberia has, and the resource is what is called demand response or consumer response. Because if you walk around Liberia, you go into different buildings, you will see that people actually waste electricity, right? And sometimes you make the air condition much cooler than it should be. So one way to reduce the load on LEC and to reduce the need for power is to control how much you use, to manage so-called demand response. The other comment I will make regarding, and I will have David talk about the issue regarding how to reduce power theft and some of his experiences from around the world. On the issue of the CLSG line and how to deal with how you will send crews to help to maintain it, why not use the resources in Liberia? It comes to deal with building capacity. As you know, the LEC, based on my understanding, is now trying to improve its human capacity, but they don't have enough. So for them to send their engineers all the way to the CLSG line, crossing border to make those repairs, right now is probably much more cost effective to keep using the Ivorian skill set until the LEC can build its capacity. And then the last way to address this issue, which I know the LEC might be thinking about, is to use technology. You don't have to always send humans to the site to restore the site after a problem. You can use technology, you can use sensors and other ways to address that issue. David, why don't you talk a little bit about some of your experiences around the management of power theft?
Power theft. So, power theft is a big issue. And it was an issue in Puerto Rico and other countries that I've gone to. It's a huge issue. Lawrence said something that really stimulated my thinking with respect to how to deal with power theft. First, in places that I've gone where power theft has been big, there are tremendous fines and penalties, okay, to discourage power theft. But that doesn't always work. So you need sensors, you need monitors, you need to always be able to see the system. Power theft puts lives at risk. When you steal electricity, you're impinging upon the safety of that electric system and the workers who work on that electric system. So substantial outreach and education are critically important. And metering. I said sensors and meters. You have to be able to see what's occurring on your electric system at all times. And you do have to have heavy penalties and heavy fines. There's no simple solution. You have to use all of the above. And I know that I've seen an improvement or decline in power theft in Liberia because there's a team of folks that go and they look throughout the entire system and they look at areas where there is constant power theft and they police those areas. And they call people that steal power criminals. So there's a hard way of dealing with it and there's a soft way of dealing with it. But you need all of the above, in my opinion.
David, if I may just add regarding the soft way, power theft harms the country.
Yes.
Power theft harms every Liberian. So we who are consumers in a community, when someone is stealing power, it is our responsibility to not just inform our community leaders or the LEC. It is our responsibility to tell those people stealing power that stealing power is wrong. That stealing power is not fair. Now, the question the gentleman also asked was about, he said how to get everyone to pay their fair share. Everybody is a customer of LEC. And that means a customer has to pay the bill. To my understanding, the law doesn't say customer XYZ has a different preference. So all the customers, and I think Mr. Minister, I heard that the Ministry of Lands and Mines is going to start putting meters on all the government buildings to measure the amount of power that is consumed. And if I'm correct, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that starting next year, they will have prepaid meters on the ministry so that the ministry will know what they are consuming. That's a big step because as you all know, it all starts from the top. So if the ministry is paying their electricity bill, more people will pay their electricity bill. Take more questions.
Yeah, you can take more questions. Well, I'll try to answer the one that asked me. But to get the record straight, an impression will not be created yet that government entities are using the LEC current and not paying for it. That's not true. That's not true. The meter system will be good because it is good for me to know the extent of current I'm using. As it stands, we're just using it, right? But we're not using it free. One of the things that used to happen was each government entity was required to settle their own electricity. And then the government said, no, the Ministry of Finance will take responsibility. The government will take responsibility through the Ministry of Finance. So it is the Ministry of Finance that is supposed to be making that payment in bulk to the LEC for the services used. But there's a general concern too, if the ministry is paying, but you cannot track the amount of current that's being used by, say, Ministry of Information, Ministry of Lands and Mines. That's why the prepaid meter systems is something that we welcome. The LEC is a government entity. We want to make sure that it survives. We've heard the managing director talk much about the amount that government owes. We don't expect the LEC to be efficient when we owe them that much. So it's a good thing. Moral Bulletin, you're working for OKFM. Right now when you got one money, you won't wear there again, you'll resign. We'll still be asking you why. You just gotta be concerned about the fact that Moral now resigned from OKFM. So I think the information that you need, you have it, which is, I can confirm that the Minister of Finance resigned. I can also state that the current Deputy Minister for Fiscal Affairs, Myers, Anthony C. Myers, has been appointed by the President to act until a much permanent leadership is determined. And I think that's enough about information. We can't be throwing people figure to say, oh, you say you resign. Tell why you resign. We can't do that. So what is available to me is what I've said to you. And that is, yes, we can confirm that he resigned. Yes, we have somebody who's stepping in until otherwise ordered. And I think that's what the media needs. The agricultural development plan, all of you journalists were invited. It was a very big ceremony, the president was there. So I expect you to be knowledgeable rather than wanting me to kind of explain. Maybe if you need more information, I can send you the agricultural minister, Minister of Information. The thing the agricultural minister will be able to take more about that plan, maybe I can say it. But at least I was able to say to you the plan is done. I was able to say to you what